Hello, I'm SeafoodSource Editor Sean Murphy, and welcome to this special edition of SeafoodSource TV, the bi-weekly video blog where we bring you news, information, and insights into the world of the seafood industry. With January here, we want to take a look back this week on the newsmakers of 2013, as reported here on SeafoodSource and in our sister publication, Seafood Business Magazine. The news ranged from the disturbing to the amusing, including a spotlight on heinous criminal activity, the chronicling of a corporate giant's fall from grace, a breakthrough in the fight against a crippling shrimp disease, and some eye-catching advertising campaigns we're not likely to forget, whether we want to or not. Starting in February, an unexpected drama began unfolding over the fate of Peruvian fish meal and fish oil producer Copa Inca when China Fishery Group made an unsolicited offer to buy the company out. The plot thickened when Norwegian fish farmer Cermaq also submitted a bid out of the blue, but later withdrew amid efforts by rival Marine Harvest to buy out Cermaq itself. In the end, China Fishery wound up buying the Peruvian company, securing a needed supply of fish meal. But as Seafood Source's Mark Godfrey told us, this may not be the last time we hear of a Chinese firm trying to buy out foreign fish meal producers.
Just look at the string of deals that have been done the last 5 years, in particular the last 2 years, by Chinese agricultural companies acquiring suppliers overseas because they see really strong demand down the line for high quality foodstuffs in China, and certainly aquaculture is and demand for high quality seafood is really going to increase in China. So,
also beginning in February, Pesca Nova, a long-time and well-established giant in the seafood industry in Spain and the world in general, raised eyebrows when it declined to disclose its debts in an annual declaration required by Spanish law. That triggered an investigation that unraveled a long series of practices regulators are describing as massive malfeasance and fraud that may have been going on for years. Over the months since, the investigation has shocked the seafood industry, both in Spain and beyond, and it's called the company's future into question. It has led to the resignation of the company's chairman, Manuel Fernandez de Souza, along with the company's entire board of directors, and the legal battle, both in criminal and civil court, is still going on. In June, scientists at the University of Arizona here in the United States made a landmark breakthrough in the fight against the shrimp disease known as acute hepatopancreatic necrotic syndrome, more commonly known as early mortality syndrome, or EMS. The disease has been ravaging shrimp pens in Southeast Asia, costing the industry several billion US dollars a year in lost product, and now there are signs that EMS may have spread both to Ecuador and India. But the new breakthrough, which pinned the cause on an infected form of the Vibrio parahemolyticus bacteria, is being hailed as the light at the end of the tunnel on the matter. And George Chamberlain, president of the Global Aquaculture Alliance, told us he thinks the discovery is a positive step too.
The entire production chain is part of the process: breeding, hatchery, farm, and feed. And so really the solution to the disease is going to require a more integrated approach, a full production chain process. I think that only by controlling the full process do we have much hope of really controlling this disease.
Also in June, the United States State Department put Thailand on its Tier 2 watch list for human trafficking for the 4th year in a row. According to the department, Thailand has not done enough to curb the widespread problem. The department's report came a month after the Environmental Justice Foundation issued its own report, citing interviews with people alleging to be victims of trafficking in the Thai fishing industry. Now, according to the foundation, victims were lured onto fishing boats, then taken out to sea to work long hours for little to no pay. Those who objected, the foundation said, were often bound, beaten, and in extreme cases, murdered on board. The so-called mackerel wars heated up this year, with European fisheries officials finally running out of patience with what they say is an ongoing and unacceptable overfishing of mackerel stocks by Iceland and the Faroe Islands. In April, Maria Damanaki, European Commissioner of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, told us at the European Seafood Exposition she believed the Commission would be seeking trade sanctions this year to control the problem.
Weapons, and now we have a trade instrument, and I'm afraid if we cannot find any other solution, we're going to fail. We're going to implement this new trade instrument and have sanctions, trade sanctions against the countries, the nations that are going to fish under unilateral quotas and without respecting our coastal agreements.
How confident are you that you might be able to avoid that sort of drastic action?
I cannot say. I cannot say I hope, but I cannot say. For the moment, we don't see any positive attitude from some coastal states. So I will not.
Meanwhile, officials from both Iceland and the Faroes insisted that the mackerel stocks have migrated northward, making it perfectly safe to fish the valuable pelagic in higher numbers. As to sanctions, Sigurgeir THORGEIRSSON, Iceland's chief negotiator in the matter with Norway and the EU, accused the larger countries of taking the easy way out, using older data to draw their conclusions, and heavy political clout to push around anyone who disagrees.
I think it is hard to describe that by other words than bullying. I think it's very unfair by a community like the European Union with several hundred million people to impose such economically hurtful measures on a little society, a friendly neighbor like the Faroe Islands with 50,000 inhabitants, over a disagreement on fishing arrangements. I think it is very unfair and cannot be called any other word than bullying.
In August, the Commission made good on its promise, leveling sanctions against the Faroes for both herring and mackerel, and promising to do the same soon against Iceland. That prompted a series of marathon talks between all parties over the following months, but so far there's been no headway in the ongoing dispute. Staying with Europe, the EU cleared the final procedural hurdles this year to approve an updated version of its common fisheries policy, a series of guidelines for regulation of the fishing industry there. Various environmental protection groups, including Greenpeace and the World Wildlife Fund, have argued the CFP was long overdue for an update. Those critics gave mixed reviews to the new CFP, welcoming the change but charging that not enough had been done. The EU finally approved the CFP in December. Among the key changes were a new discards ban and a promise of more decentralized control systems giving more authority to regional officials. In October, a new report emerged that took a good look at the future of the world's oceans and contained a series of recommendations on how money should be spent in the coming years on fisheries improvement projects in third world countries. The report came from a blue ribbon panel organized in part by the World Bank and made up of an unlikely collection of corporate leaders, government officials, scientists, educators, and environmental activist groups. The World Bank's Jim Anderson talked with us after the report's release about what the panel is hoping to accomplish.
Is that if you want to preserve biodiversity and have appropriate conservation in the oceans, you have to deal with the problem of the people. In other words, you have to have viable businesses. You have to have viable communities. Because if those communities aren't working, and if they're not functioning, and if they're hungry and poor, your marine protected area is not going to work.
Finally, on a more amusing note, 2 promotional campaigns showed us there is no limit to the imagination of European seafood promoters. In February, the Norwegian Seafood Council presented a series of commercials showcasing interpretive dance performance artists pretending to be human sushi, promoting Norwegian sushi products. The commercials aired on YouTube, drawing comments from viewers, calling them everything from crazy to cute. In a different campaign in December, sustainable seafood advocacy group Fish Love presented an eye-catching series of photos in its annual campaign featuring naked celebrities cradling various sea creatures. This year's collection, which included former X-Files star Gillian Anderson, marks the 3rd time the group has used the provocative medium to convey its message. December's campaign was supposed to drive an online petition to support a controversial bill to ban a certain kind of trawling off the British coast. The ban failed, but the campaign, along with similar photo collections from the group's previous 2 years, remains on the group's site. That's it for this special edition of Seafood Source TV, but be sure to check back here for a new edition in 2 weeks, where we'll bring you more news, information, and insights from the world of the seafood industry. Until then, I'm Seafood Source Editor Sean Murphy saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you online.